We should be ready to go. I'm just checking. Let's do a quick roll call. Matt Lowry.
Present.
Okay, Joanne Schooler.
Here.
Let's see. Megan Manasali.
Present.
And the bottom of the list, Mr. Bill Diamore. Doesn't look like he has audio going. He is here. Oh, he's gone. Let's see if he jumps back up again. Wait for him to come back in. Also with us this evening is Jonathan Shines, our liaison to the town council, and Erin Kokinda, our Director of Community and Economic Development. Okay. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Hoping Bill jumps on. Welcome to Wakefield, the Town of Wakefield Planning Board meeting, January 12th, 2021. So I'm glad, and Happy New Year to everybody. I'm glad we made it to 2021 with all this. 2020 was a good year. We'll have a recap at some point, I believe, with the town council, as most boards do, and we've been reporting to them. This evening on the agenda, actually, let me read the top part first. So, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and/or listen to the meeting in real time. So there's some other information there, but we'll be doing the Zoom meeting obviously until we get all back together, and then we'll see where it goes from there. The agenda for this evening, call to order, approval of minutes. We will continue our public hearing. The articles proposed to amend the zoning bylaws proposed by the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. We also have on tonight's agenda 291 Salem Street, and then we'll review the planning board budget and then items not anticipated by the chair. Approval of minutes, December 8th, 2020. Did everybody have a chance to review the meeting minutes? And if there are any questions, if not, I'd like to hear if somebody could make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the December 8th, 2020 regular planning board meeting minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Joanne, Megan, myself. I know Bill has not joined back in. All right, that's 4 members. Thank you. Item number 3 on tonight's agenda, public hearing, articles proposed to amend zoning bylaws. So I just want to, what I'll do is I'll bring that up. Let me do a new share. I'll bring the exact writing up. Can you see the Article 11? This is from the town meeting warrant. So as some of you know, and Joanne Schooler, our board member, was with me, and we had a special, not a special meeting, but a meeting with town council Tom Mullen and members of Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, attorneys, and a few others from the community to review the wording. Only because there were so many questions that came up in previous planning board meetings. We just wanted to make sure everything was covered. How this was worded, how this is worded, the number of units, the density, per acre, and the whole idea of being in a limited business district and all that. So we wanted to make sure multifamily dwellings, mid-rise apartments, the special permit changing to N in the table, that was just all worded correctly to the current zoning bylaws. And the meeting went well. Just as a quick recap, it was a good discussion. We reviewed what is written. We talked about each sentence, each piece, went back and looked at the codes, had discussions on it, and really found that this is worded exactly how it needs to be. It covers everything it needs to. It doesn't leave any ambiguity to be misinterpreted. We do know, and it came up in the meeting, that our town zoning bylaws need some work. There are some issues with how they're written with some minor contradictions and with overlapping of a few other sections. But as far as this article is written, the meeting we had, it worked out well. And this is the proposed article that will go to town meeting if after this evening, our board decides to recommend with favorable action and put together a report and all that needs to be done for this. As you all know, town meeting is the first Monday in May. And as far as I know at this time, that's what we're working towards. So with that, I wanted to open this up to Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, to Bill Conley. I believe you're here this evening. Just wanted to see if you had anything to say.
Good evening. Thank you, Bill. No, I agree with you. I thought the meeting with Tom Mullen went well. It was worthwhile having. We were pleased that the article looks actionable from a planning board standpoint. I guess other than that, we'll just see, what happens tonight, conversation, comments, and other issues. I have one question, and I can ask it to you, Bill. The additional notification that was talked about in the Tom Mullen meeting relative to the other limited business district. What's the status of that, and how will you approach that, or has it been accomplished?
It hasn't been we haven't worked on it at all. And I know Erin Kokinda is on the call too. We, I don't believe any action has been underway to for other limited business developments. Erin, is that true still?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's true. Yeah. Yeah, nothing's been done.
Okay. So we are waiting to see if something develops, but right now there's nothing in the limited business around the lake or on the other side of 128 where the Sheraton Four Points is. There's nothing that has been officially proposed as a development. I believe that was your question, correct, Bill?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I just want to see if Bill Diamori is here. Excellent. Okay. Joanne, you attended that meeting as part of the planning board. Is there any comments that you have, or anything you want to share with the board and the public?
Yeah, I think we basically clarified the article. The other thing I thought was interesting was when Tom Mullen had suggested that he could help the planning board if we wanted to either improve this article or create another article, was my understanding, regarding the Lake District and what kind of provisions and what kind of requirements we have or we want to have for development around the lake. And the other thing that I thought might still have some questions was the bit in this article about the maximum of 14 units per acre of lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you had mentioned there was some conflict about that. So I just want to make sure that the 14 units per acre is specific enough.
It is, and it was about the density, whether it was about square footage or 14 units per acre. Interestingly enough, if you've been following the MACP and what was proposed by our state, I'm trying to think of it, they actually chose 15 units per acre for multi-family development within a certain area near MBTA stations. So the question that came up, and that hasn't been signed yet by the governor, but that's something that's in front of the governor to be signed. The question was, where did 14 units per acre come from? And that's like, is it just a number that was picked out of the hat, or where did it come from? So it is in our zoning bylaws units per acre. And so this number seems to fit with what the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt are proposing. So, and that was enough to move forward with 14 units as opposed to square footage. I hope that clarifies it and doesn't.
Right. And
Um,
where did we leave it off in terms of the discussion around the overlay district idea or the specific lake district idea? How did we conclude that discussion?
Well, it was just that a discussion during that meeting, and it was an exciting discussion because it did raise some really good conversation about, well, what if the lake had its own district or overlay district that had certain things that apply to it? And if I remember correctly, Tom Mullen was pretty excited about how that might work too, where if by the lake, that's what, with the zoning bylaw change, if there was an overlay district around the lake, that would cover any future development and could help guide from developers coming into town to any type of economic development around the lake, and it could all be combined. So that was an interesting conversation that we had, but it didn't go anywhere from after that meeting. But
So
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think that's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say if Erin has.
Yeah, that's nothing that's gonna happen in a month. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, we can look into it. I think we need to look at our master plan and how we think about our zoning moving forward. But yeah. All I'll add. Thanks.
Thanks, Erin. Okay. Any other planning board members have anything to add to the conversation?
So this article, as it's written, is going to be submitted, or is it going to be revised at all?
Submitted as written in front of us.
So we
Nothing's
had,
been revised on this.
so we had, there was talk before about excluding one of the parcels up at, that's not near the lake.
Yes, the Sheridan 4 Points.
So what's going to happen with that? Is that still going to be amended on the floor? Because it doesn't need to be at this point. It can be corrected now. And this can be fixed before we get to the floor. So I'm kind of curious, you know, there was a lot of talk of amending this when it gets to the floor. That doesn't need to be done if we have all this time. So I'm a little confused as to where we're at this point.
Well, after the meeting we had, there was no changes that were going to be made with the wording. Tom Mullen found that this was exactly what, I shouldn't say exactly, that I said this is written and prepared properly to go to town meeting, that
Well,
changing it.
it may be written, but
Yeah,
the discussion was that parcel where the Sheraton is, should this be, should that be included? And we had a lot of discussion that, well, it hadn't intended to be, and it can be taken out at town meeting, the one that we were rushing to try to get to. Now that we're not rushing to get to a town meeting, we have the time to tweak this. Is it going to be tweaked, or is it going forward as it is?
going forward as it is.
Well,
During tonight's meeting, if
well,
the public wants
Mr.
to
Chairman,
speak more about it. Yeah,
let me, you know, I guess this is a question for the applicant, not for you, because
Okay.
it's the applicant who's putting this forward. So that was one of my, you know, something I was concerned about, is that the applicant is concerned about development around the lake, but this affects a parcel that is not next to the lake.
Mr. Connolly?
Yeah, Matt, yeah, we would be concerned if it was viewed negatively and affecting the article. If I remember, Bill Spalding and Joanne, that Mr. Mullen thought adequate notification to anyone affected in that limited business district other than Lakeside Limited Business District? Hence my question about that. Yeah, if this board feels that's inadequate, or we need to circle back, to Matt's point, we do have time. If we need to circle back and make sure that that is something that can be handled at a planning board meeting, it may make some sense, even though we've been at this a while, it may make some sense to look at that. I guess I'd be inclined to think Matt might have a point, and maybe there can be discussion about that. And we also, I think, be inclined to go with what the board decides.
Yeah, I sort of remember that the discussion about the Lakeside District came up because we wanted to define the district that this would apply to so that it does exclude that other limited business district where the Sheraton is.
Yeah, it was part of the discussion. I'm trying to look at my notes to see exactly, but it was about
So what we're talking here is there's got to be a map amendment to either take that parcel out that the Sheraton is out of the limited business district and put it in another district, or redistrict that area around the lake. This is one of my concerns, is that of making changes at town meeting, that was going to be a problem when it falls to a map amendment, because redrawing a map at town meeting was not going to be a pleasant idea in my mind. So I think that needs to be straightened out, or we're still going to have the same issues. I'm going to have the same issues as if you're trying to do something at the lake, why are you sweeping in a parcel that's not near the lake?
Because we don't have a lake district.
right, but the limited business does extend out past 128 for that parcel of land that the Sheridan 4 Point sits on.
And Bill Conley here, we have no intention or no desire to affect that small portion that's not part of the Lakeside Business District.
All right, so I guess the moving forward with the way the article is written is not what's planned then right now. And it looks like there needs to be some kind of map amendment, or
Yeah.
I can only see it a map amendment. So I guess we need to, the applicant needs to decide how to proceed on this.
Matt, just to be clear, when you say map amendment, meaning that the limited business district that this article would be, that we're discussing on the lake, would become a different limited business district, or in the writing would not include the limited business district outside of 128? I mean, how would the map amendment work? I'm not familiar with.
Well, as it is now, the way this is written, it affects every parcel in the limited business district.
Understood.
So in order to remove one of the parcels out of it, you need to somehow describe what the parcel is. And the only, I suppose you could say you could put a limit, any limited business district within so many feet of the shore of the lake. I suppose that could do it, but at this point, just either take that parcel out and put it in another district, or I think that would be the best thing to do.
Again, Bill Conley speaking for the Friends. I think we would support it if planning was comfortable in amending the district in amending the article with language that would clearly indicate it was just Lakeside Limited District, we would support that if that's adequate.
Well, again, we're not writing this article, so
No, but are you offering amendment language that we could incorporate in?
no. What I'm, in my mind, you would need to change the map to
Yeah, I
either do
think
a new Lakeside district, or probably the easiest thing to do would take that one parcel out, or I believe it's just one parcel out of the limited business district and put it into another district.
Yeah, this is definitely a bigger conversation, I think, than right now. I know we had conversations when we had our meeting about it. We could look into it, I guess.
Yeah, I think we need to look into it, and I don't think we want to wait to look into it either, because town meeting's coming up, and if we can fine tune this article or help the Friends of the Lake to fine tune it, I think that's what Tom Mullen had suggested we do.
No, I completely, yeah, I agree.
Well, we don't have to close public hearing this evening. I know I mentioned that at the beginning, just as the process would be, if there was a conclusion tonight, we would close public hearing and move on to recommend or not recommend as a board. So that doesn't have to happen this evening. So I don't want to feel like that part is rushed. I do want to stress that with the people that are here this evening, I just want to check participants. We have 21 participants. So we're not getting the crowd that we've had in the past with 60, 70, 80 from the public, which is okay. My feelings are not hurt, but I understand we should look at how the wording is. And Matt, I know in past meetings where we've reviewed this, we've had some help from the attorneys that were present and from our former town planner on how this wording would be before it went to Tom Mullen. So is this something that we want to do this evening? Do we want to open this up to the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, the public, and to the attorneys that are present to come up with some wording that would start with this limited business district within a certain distance or adjacent to Lake Quannapowitt and excluding the limited business district away from this area? Is there something that we should look at as a scenario that does work this evening? Or should we not talk about it this evening and not get deep into it and have a group get together? Maybe Mr. Cron and Mr. Mullen can get together with Bill Conley and maybe Brian McGrail and Aaron and work out what this could be. I'm just looking at two different paths. Do we want to spend the time this evening, or do we want to let it go to some distance between our next meeting in 2 weeks and then have it reviewed there?
Let me tell you what, to me, the easiest path would be to do is the Friends of the Lake Quannapowitt to do another zoning article, which would be a map amendment, which would be to take that one parcel out and move it to a different district. Then we wouldn't have this issue. You could go forward with the second amendment, which is, if people go with it, would be this. That would settle it right there.
I'm not sure I agree with that, Matt, only because the parcels of land we're talking about in the limited business, it's not that whole limited business area. As you know, there's a parcel in the middle that's currently occupied that would stay limited business and around it would change. That seems like we're doing some spot zoning on changing to a different district in there versus trying to accomplish it with either an overlay or a bylaw change to the limited business and include the one on the other side of 128. I just want to look at the map.
Mr. Chairman, this is Chris Crone. If I could just weigh in for a
Yes,
minute.
please.
Okay. It seems to me kind of offhand here that there's possibly, 3 and probably more ways to skin this cat. One is perhaps creating an overlay district. Another might be to create 2 limited business districts, one in which encompasses this area and a separate one that deals with the Sheridan property. The third is, as Mr. Laurie suggested, some sort of adjacency requirement to Lake Q. And as I said, there's probably many more that not coming to mind at the moment. I think what would be most helpful, we're certainly able to. I'm happy to work with either the Friends or the Friends and Mr. Mullen and Mr. McGrail or whoever wants to be involved to tweak the language to get to the goal that I think we all are aligned on. And I guess what would be most helpful is if there's any input at this point from the planning board as to which of those 3 or more proposals would be the best path forward. And we can work to get there. But if you have a preference as to how to accomplish the goal, that would be helpful to know.
Thank you. That's good insight. Thinking about how an overlay district would work, considering how our other overlay districts are set up. The second option would be having a limited business district, but like limited business 1, limited business 2. Limited business 1 would be outside of 128, a certain distance away from the lake. Limited business 2 would be with a certain distance from the lake, which would cover this area that we have. This article is for. And the third one would be some type of adjacency, which I guess combines into that second one. Matt, are you feeling any one of those has more weight for a zoning map amendment?
I think I've already said what I thought would be the best thing to do, so.
If I could say, I know one of the problems we initially were faced with was that we hadn't worked with planning. So I think Chris is right when he says that if we do get a group, take this offline from this meeting and get a group to work on the language, planning has to be represented. Our concern would be that if we were just to go and write a change to zoning that, that's not our strength. And then some that change, however it would read, would then lead to the article. We would have problems when we came back before you. And I don't think anyone wants that. So
Right.
we need to do a thorough job. I think, Bill, if you could appoint some people to include a planning board person, please, and anyone else interested, just to look at the options so that when we come before you, and I think we have to, if we're changing something this significant, I don't know if we leave this article with you open and come with a new article through town council. These are things that have to be talked about. And Joanne's right, time is not unlimited here. It goes fast, so.
Yeah,
We certainly want to work. We want to have a successful article. We want to have an article that everyone understands, not impacting anyone outside that lakeside district. We appear close, but we need, I think we, excuse me, I think we need to do more work.
Thank you, Bill. I see a couple hands up before we go to those. Joanne, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say that I think it should be a collaborative effort between the planning board and FOLQ.
Mhm.
And my understanding, what I took away from that executive session we had with Tom Mullen was he had suggested that he could advise the planning board on an article and getting the article right. So I guess if we're working together with the FOLQ and the planning board, can Tom Mullen advise us?
Yes, he
So
can.
that would seem to make sense to me.
He could be part of the meeting and advise all of us, yes. Attorney McGrill, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Brian McGrail, and I agree with a lot of the things that have been said tonight. A lot of the concepts that have been talked about. My recollection on the meeting that we had was that the owner of the Sheridan property was going to be invited. Because who knows, maybe they don't care. But they were going to be invited to be heard. Even though, as it was stated, it's not a requirement that they are. We all know that. I think all three, I think, Bill Conley will say, and Chris Kroon, I'm not looking to be an obstructionist here. I think I was, I think it was a good meeting that we had with town council. And I've agreed with Chris Kroon from day one that the language of the bylaw is written works as it was written. I stated that at the meeting. I think all three concepts that are being talked about work. They would work, all three of them. I think a map change to the Sheridan property could be problematic because you don't know how you're going to affect that property and how it's zoned now and what permits that it has in place. You might make it a non-conforming property. You might expand development opportunities in that property that people don't want to. So, that is not extremely simple because you have to look at the fallout on the effect of the property and the effect of the area by making that zoning change. And that could be a problem. I think the interesting thing to me is if the board is going to have a discussion on the appropriateness of the concept of the change that's being proposed. Because the density that's being proposed, as we've discussed, is in conflict with the housing production plan. There's been no study presented on why that's the appropriate density. So, maybe the board's already come to that conclusion. But, I think the planning board's role when a zoning article is submitted, with all due respect, is not to rewrite it for the applicant or the person submitting it. And I think that's a lot of what Mr. Lowry is getting at. The planning board's job is to look at the article as submitted and make some reasonable recommendations to change it if they deem it appropriate, but either say we're going to support it or not support it. But that's your decision. But I don't think there's really been an overall discussion on the concept of the change itself. And I did want to mention that. But I'm happy to meet with anybody like I did before and try to work as cooperatively as possible.
Thank you. Brown and Delavobi?
Hi, Brown and Delavobi, 8 Cyrus Street. When you met with Tom Mullen, was this proposed article discussed?
Yes,
It was. Did this issue come up?
it came up in a question because the Sheridan is also under limited business, and would this change their property? Should the owner be notified? And Mr. Mullen noted that there is no legal or binding reason that we need to notify the owner of the Sheridan. And we did discuss that in good, just as a good neighbor, that it would be good to notify them. I believe that was the extent. I paraphrased a few things, but that's to the extent of the discussion we had regarding the Sheridan limited business.
Okay, because if Tom Mullen, if I understand your characterization properly, Tom Mullen is happy with the wording and the language in this bylaw. Is that correct?
Yes, he sees no reason why he doesn't see many issues. He doesn't see any issues with the writing of this zoning bylaw article.
Okay, and he did he or did he not bring up any concern with the Sheraton property? Did he seem to
No.
think that that was going to be an issue?
No.
Okay, so why is that being discussed here? Not that it shouldn't be discussed, but if Tom Mullen is happy and that was sort of decided at the meeting, then why is this discussion happening now?
Because it was brought up by a planning board member. I'm not sure if you were here when Mr. Lowry brought up the issue where this article is really only concerning the limited business district at the lake. The intention wasn't met for the limited business district outside of 128 where the Sheraton is. So it brought it up as a concern to, if this goes to town meeting and it's on the floor and the discussion comes up, will the article be amended on the floor? And could that be taken care of in our planning board meetings and not have it go to the floor of town meeting? So that's probably the easiest I can explain it.
Okay, I guess
Sorry,
I'm just,
I'm sorry, hold on, Brown and Matt.
Yeah, I think I can explain it, because this issue did come up and we asked the applicant, what about that parcel? And he said he hadn't intended for it to be included. So that's why we're talking about it.
Okay.
Because it's because the applicant expressed the fact that he had not intended for that parcel necessarily to be included, because he's worried, he's dealing with a lakeside development issue. So that's
Okay.
why I'm bringing it up again.
Just Matt, and before Braun, you go in. Yeah, perhaps the best expression of our intent would be not affected. And if it's not affected by the current language, and if that's what we feel that Tom Mullen has said, then we would be comfortable acting on this. So, yeah, so I think if they're not affected, we could change the not included to not affected. Does that help?
well, this is one thing I was going to suggest. Instead of having two bylaws at town meeting, which gets cumbersome, and because one needs to rely on the other, and we know how that works. Can't you simply say what Bill just said, excluding the property or any other property outside a quarter mile from the lake, or something to that effect? Just
Yes,
exclude it right in the bylaw.
Right, and that can be done, but we would need to look to the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt who proposed this to make that change.
Absolutely, yes, I agree. And also, I would like to say that the discussion about whether or not this is appropriate, I don't think that's up to this board. I think that's up to town meeting members to decide whether or not this is something that they feel is appropriate and beneficial. I don't think it's up to this board.
Just to interrupt, if what's appropriate.
I'm sorry, referring to what Mr. McGrail had said previously about limiting the number of units per acre, whether or not that's appropriate.
No.
And I'm saying I believe it's not up to this board to decide that it's up to town meeting to decide that.
Okay, the zoning, just to be clear, the town votes on whether the zoning bylaw is accepted or not by 2/3 vote at town meeting.
Right.
The planning board is here to help vet through public meetings, a hearing,
Right.
and to recommend favorable action or not to town council moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear for everybody so it makes sense that we're not deciding if this zoning bylaw is accepted or not.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Point of order.
Yes, please.
With all due respect, that's not accurate. The role of
What part is not accurate?
well, the role of, well, both the statement by Ms. Delavolpe and part of what you just stated, the role of the planning board statutorily is to make a recommendation of either approval or denial of the article. That's the role. So it is within the purview of the planning board to look at the appropriateness of this in the scope of the town. In the bylaw, that's your function. When a bylaw gets presented to you, that's the purpose of this hearing, for you to consider that. And then you make a recommendation, yes or no. Even if you recommend no, it still goes to town meeting for a vote. So Ms. Delavolpe is correct on that, that ultimately the town meeting will decide if it passes or not. But your board does have a very important statutory function on making a recommendation on the town meeting of whether town meeting should vote yes or no on this.
But Tom Mullen didn't have a problem with it, did he?
Well, I can answer that. Tom Mullen looked at this bylaw from a technical component to see if it functioned within the four corners of the bylaw to accomplish what the Friends of the Lake were looking to accomplish. And he said it does. And I agree with him on that. I did from day one. Whether what's being proposed here, the limitations of this bylaw are appropriate for that district in consideration of the housing production plan without a study being done or presented, that's a question for the planning board to make a recommendation to the town meeting. And
Okay.
as has happened many a times before, sometimes the planning board makes a recommendation and town meeting overrides them and votes the other way. It happens in every town that way.
Right.
But Tom Mullen isn't the one to say, oh yeah, this is fine from a density perspective, et cetera. Tom Mullen looked at this from a technical aspect. That's all he did. And that's his function as town attorney.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Browning. Mr. Mitchell, I see your hand is raised.
I'm mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
Could you please state your
okay.
name and address, just for the record?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's Robert W. Mitchell, 6 Spalding Street, Wakefield. Thank you. I just want to say briefly, I 100% agree with what Matt and Brian were saying, and you know, it's a little challenging because if you look at the zoning map online, it does not have the Sheraton point. So I understand where historically that might have got neglected back on, but Matt's totally right in that if this issue has been discussed over the month or two, this should be addressed. Just briefly, this will be pretty brief. I'm in overwhelming favor of a lakeside district. Very familiar with what's done out in Acton, Franklin, and Webster, Mass. Those are laws that have passed their towns and also passed the Attorney General, so you know you've got something that works. Saying that, doing a lakeside, you know, you've got to talk strategy. Will the town accept it? And do we have enough time to do that? I'm not the presenter of the article, so it's not for me to say that, but I would say it's probably a big ask to crank out a lakeside protection zone, if you will, prior to this upcoming town meeting. So, I mean, strategically, I think this is a nice forward step, see which way the town goes. You know, it's always up to the voters. So I would just it sounds like I would defer a couple of weeks, get input from Tom Mullen, see if you can do an adjacency clause, because I agree with all you guys. You don't want to change the map unless you have to. You don't want to change Sheraton unless you have to. You want to keep this real simple, especially if this much talk tonight, town meeting will be quadruple the amount. So I would recommend, unless you want to vote on this tonight, just to get it handled, and then let FOQ go away and come back. If they come back with the same article, it's done. If they come back with a modified article, you could vote then too. I think that's the only option for tonight, but I would just recommend you stay in the course on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. While you were speaking, I brought up the map. Can you see the zoning map on the shared? Is it showing the zoning? Okay. So this is this is 128. Here's the limited business district.
Oh.
And there's the Sheraton right there. So it is, and this is the
oh, got it.
The road, the back road going to Market Street, and this is Pleasure Island Road at the set of lights moving forward. So there's the ramp, 128. Sheridan sits right here. Saugus River is the divider between Linfield and Wakefield.
Yeah, okay. I should know that because a distant relative of my family actually built all that page.
And if we swing back over to the lake, you can see the extent of the limited business district.
Yeah.
That starts here at starts with a B. No, was it Willard? Sorry, Willard Street, and to Quantipower Parkway, and to 128, all the
Yeah.
way to 129 here. And there's a, yeah. So just to bring up the zoning map to
Yeah.
give everybody a visual
It's,
of the spaces that we're talking about. So
yeah,
here,
it's, yeah. I wouldn't do it today, but certainly that part of the Gertrude Spalding Park is in both zones, should be corrected at some point in the future, just to clean that up. You
right
could
here?
hang a little business up. Yes, you could hang a business up front, which is historically what it was, right? It had been Howard Johnson's and so forth. So that should probably be cleaned up, but I wouldn't recommend that.
Well,
But that
Frank's
would
still
be a
there.
nice future tidbit. Yeah.
Frank's still there.
True,
All right.
true. All right, we'll have the Franks district. All right, I've said enough.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is good, listening to some comments from the public and from the board and from Attorney McGrail. I think in the best interest of moving forward, to reconvene another meeting, an executive meeting, as Joanne mentioned, with two people from the board and I guess just Mr. Conley putting the same group together that we had from the last meeting.
Yes, fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask why there's a committee being set up for this?
Well, the Friends of Lake Quantipower are going to rewrite to add something about limited business or some type of lake adjacency. And shouldn't that be vetted before it comes back to us, or should it just come back to us written differently by them?
No, this is the place for public input, so it should come back to us. So if there's discussion between the board and the Friends of the Lake, it should be here.
All right, just to be clear, because it's been a long day. I just want to make sure if we don't have that meeting, the Friends of Lake Quantipower will get together and reword it how they want to, speak to whoever they want to about it, and then bring it back to our next meeting.
It's their article. I understand that.
Totally
So-
understand. But to assist the process and move it forward, does it make sense to have a meeting between now and then where they do get a chance to write something with Mr. Mullen, with Tom Mullen, advising them, and with Attorney McGrail there and members of the board? I just wanted, I'm looking for a good solution to move forward to evolve it. So when we do come back to our planning board meeting, there's some substance to the way it's written. We don't have to spend hours at the planning board meeting discussing how it's written, but we can get further into public hearing and move forward. I do want to make sure it's all in order.
Yeah, I suppose that could happen, but we've never done it that way before. So if the planning board is writing an article, then the planning board writes an article. If someone's bringing an article to us to review publicly and comment on, we do that.
Well, in respect to that, I know our former town planner would sit with the people writing the article and work out and vet it, and then it would come to us. So I guess that's the part that I'm trying to recreate. If that doesn't need to happen, that's fine.
I suppose it could go forward. I think we're just setting a new precedent for, out of meeting discussions that perhaps represent how the board would want to go without the whole board being there. So I'm just trying
Right.
to, to be fair, I'm just trying to be fair here and not show that we're going out of our way to help out one group or one person over the other, because, this could be expected for every zoning article going forward. And I don't think we should be doing that.
Okay, and I apologize if that's me trying to make up for our gap of not having a town planner. and trying to work with those who are trying to find the right path to get here, because as you know, it really isn't spelled out on our website or how this process works. And I don't want to set new precedents without, and I don't want to show favorable action, of course. We do want this to be a fair process for anybody who applies.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think you've kind of put the friends, the sponsors of the article, in a position where it's tough to make a judgment tonight. You know, if we were to ask for this to go forward as is, it seems like it would be viewed unfavorably by the board. Yet the board is saying, go away and get us something we can look at. And we're willing to do that, but does that mean procedurally, does that mean that we can come directly back to the board? Do we have to resubmit through town offices, town council? If we come back with something direct to the board and you're willing to hear it, are we going forward from there with your report out, favorable or unfavorable? Can you just run over that for me a little bit so I can understand?
Yes, and I see just Mr. Mitchell, do you have your hand up again, or is it from before? And I see Chris Cron has his up as well. So we'll get to those in a minute. To address that, Bill, what I've experienced on our board is that if the article is being amended and just tweaked, we don't have to go to another whole re-presentation or public notice and everything. We can keep the same public hearing open. It doesn't have to be closed. If you're addressing and writing a new article, that would have to start over again. And Matt, does that sound right from your past experience too?
I don't know as to how much this proposed article is tweaked, that it is basically rewritten so much that you would need to give public notice. I don't know that. So I know if you went to do a map amendment and do a new article, obviously that would have to be publicized, but this is, you know, I'm not an attorney when it comes to this, so I really don't know, but, you know, I'm just stating basically what the applicant has said before, is that he had not intended to do something, so I'm bringing up the issue. Whether he goes forward with it as it is, and we either approve, you know, we favorably recommend it or not, then he submits it to town meeting. That's, you know, I do not want to be the one to tell him how to do it exactly. So, but I am, you know, obviously if he wants to submit it the way it is, we can vote on it.
Thanks, Matt. Mr. Cron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Crone from 114 Main Street. You know, I think, you know, everyone appears to agree that the planning board here has the authority to help assist with reasonable changes to a proposed article. As my understanding, that's, you know, really the intent of presenting this to the planning board. And one of the things that frankly the original articles got kind of dinged for was that the planning board didn't have sufficient time, and really, if I recall, comments to the effect of the planning board wasn't consulted in connection with putting this article together. And so, you know, I think what we're intending to do here is to do that, is to work with you to make those reasonable changes, to make the article consistent with your intent and consistent with the intent of the applicants. which is, I think, well understood by the group. Again, would have the impact of making the amendment narrower. So, to address the issue of, do we have to present a new article? Would we have to give new notice? Effectively, I think all of the interested parties certainly have notice, are participating in this hearing, and the intent of any amendment, if it was to make it narrower, I think would fall within the public notice function of the existing article and the process that's been followed. So, I guess we're looking for some input. We're happy to try to make changes to address concerns, but to send us off somewhat in the dark to just go and take a stab at an amendment only to have it kind of come back and say, well, that's not exactly what we wanted something else. It doesn't seem to be an efficient process. And I think the board has within its authority the ability to make reasonable changes and work with the applicant to make those changes to affect the intent of the planning board.
Thank you. Browning?
I think I
Sorry.
can comment on that. Every other zoning article that we have has come before us. There's been a professional that on the applicant's side who knows zoning issues, and they're the ones writing the article. So basically an attorney is the person who's doing that, someone who knows zoning. What has happened in this case is an applicant has submitted an article without, I guess, legal counsel, and there are issues that were brought up by the applicant that, what about this zone? What about this? And they stated they had not intended for that to be included. So relying on us to give you legal advice on how to proceed with your article, I would be hesitant on doing that, because if us as untrained zoning experts, we're not attorneys, give you bad advice, you show up at town meeting and it's shot down for a legal technicality, or when it goes to the state, we don't want to, we don't want to take the fall for that. So you can either submit it the way it is, or it can be rewritten to try to get approval from the board.
Just quickly, Mr. Laurie, a couple of points to address those, because I think in the first instance, this article was written by a professional. This was written by an attorney who has zoning experience. And further to that point, Mr. Mullen himself found it to be entirely accurate. Okay, so there is no question at this point concerning the legality of this article. What we're now trying to do is attempt to address the concerns that have been raised about the scope by the planning board, and frankly, to be consistent with the intent of the applicants themselves. And to assist in that process, Mr. Mullen has volunteered that he will work with the planning board to accomplish that goal. So we have a path forward here. We're not asking for legal advice. We're asking for your input on how you want it done. We can get legal advice, get the bylaws written, and Mr. Mullen has agreed to work with the planning board to make sure that they're technically that they're approved from a legal perspective on your end. So I don't think this is a matter of legalities. It's a matter of just trying to find the most efficient path forward.
Okay, I appreciate that. And of all the board members, I have stated exactly what I think should be done. So, there.
If I might, Mr. Chair and board.
I'm sorry, hold on, Bill.
Sorry.
Bill, hold on a second.
Go
I
ahead.
want to check in. All right, go ahead, Bill.
So if I may, yeah, I think it's up to you, Mr. Chairman and the board, but if we could end the discussion this evening, and if I'm correct, we're getting direction from the board to address the concern with the additional limited non-lakeside business district and come back directly to you when we can to get on a meeting agenda to submit the revised article. Is
That
what
that
you
is an
have
option,
us
Bill.
do? Will that work for your purposes?
Well, it would be good to hear from other members of the board, but I feel you have an option to just go with this article as written. That is one option you have. You don't have to change anything about it. And then see what happens at town meeting.
Mr. Chair, again, I'd like to not take that step tonight, if possible.
Okay,
We may come back with this very article. We do have some time. But I think I'd like to have a discussion with some interested parties about how to amend adequately. So at least that particular part of the article would not be a problem next time.
okay.
And if that's within your bylaws to allow that, and we can be assured that we can come back directly to you, and it would be considered a small adjustment, which I think is reasonable, then we could, we could look forward to proceeding again shortly.
Yes, and coming back to us in a meeting with the public hearing open with small adjustments to this article is the process I believe Matt is talking about, where we as a board can then give our thoughts and opinions and about the small adjustments. I guess what I'm unclear about is the extent of those adjustments to where it becomes a different article that's being proposed.
Well, Bill, I believe that's where, the town council,
Right.
Mullen, would not have an issue with if you brought it to him and says, has this expanded the scope too much, or is it
Okay.
still within the four corners? I think he would answer that. He's not gonna tell you how to write the article, but he will tell you if it's out of scope or not. So I don't think he would have an issue with that.
Okay, that makes sense.
But relying on the board to tell you if how you're changing it does that, that's not, I wish I'd like to say that I could do that, but I just don't have the legal expertise in this to do that.
I don't either. Are there any other members of the board that would like to speak up at this time to for the direction that Mr. Conley is speaking about?
Well,
Joanne?
well, I
You know,
agree
okay.
with, yeah, I agree with what Chris Kroon had said earlier. I don't see a problem with the board or a subset of the board working to amend the article. I mean, it sort of sounds to me like, Matt, you have a little bit of a problem with that. But I don't really have a problem with that, because that's really what I thought Tom Mullen suggested, that he could advise the board if we were involved in the article.
Right, and I felt our presence as a board in that meeting was more to observe and facilitate, to make sure the information was there for everybody to review and to move the meeting forward. I felt that was my part of that meeting. And Joanne, with the questions that came up with the discussion, I felt we were there to observe, to make sure we understood what was being discussed, so we could keep the meeting on track and make sure the questions that came up during the planning board meeting were addressed. I see, Bill, I want to, Mr. Conley, I want to respect your wish to end our discussion now and to have the Friends of Lake Quantapowhat with a group of people review and talk to Tom Mullen about the small adjustments, and then bring it back to the board. There are two hands up, and I just want to make sure that the questions that are coming in or the comments are directed towards what we're talking about right now. Mr. Cron? Is your hand up new or is it up from before?
Must be up from before. Sorry.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And the hands are yellow now. They're not blue anymore. So they're a little harder to see, honestly. Brownon, Delavope, is your hand up to speak?
Yes, my hand is up.
Okay.
Yes. I think this maybe got away from everybody because I think this ended up being a little bit more complex than it really needed to be. I think it probably would have been helpful to have Tom Mullen in on this meeting, and maybe someone can make that decision for the next meeting so that he could be here to answer any questions that may come up. I think what's being proposed is a tweak to this existing article. I think it's wise that Friends of the Lake goes off and gets their whatever council they choose to make the changes, come back to the board. It's all part of the same process. So I think the path forward is really very clear. Just have FOQ, get the language, have it approved by some legal counsel, so that it says what their intent is for this, and come back to the board. Easy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just for the record, during our past meeting, Mr. Mullen was invited to our planning board meeting here. So yes, we accepted his offer to assist. So if Mr. Conley, so we'll keep public hearing open and wait to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board. That sounds reasonable. You'll hear from us.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we need to extend this public hearing to a date.
Do we have to define what date?
Yes,
Meaning that this meeting will continue at the, want to make sure, Mr. Conley, if we're looking at 2 weeks from now, which is the 26th, that we will continue the public hearing on the 26th of January? Does that sound okay?
Could we make that 4 weeks, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, that would be February 9th.
Why don't we do that?
Okay. Matt? I don't believe we have to make a motion. We just have to make a statement saying that the public hearing will be continued on February 9th, and it has to show up in our meeting, correct?
yeah, we just need to let people know here when we're continuing it to.
Yep.
This might seem like kind of a silly point, but and I'm sure this is true for a lot of people here. I was a friend of the lake long before I was a planning board member, and I'm sure a lot of us are friends of the lake as well as planning board members. So we're kind of playing two roles a little bit anyway, if you know what I mean.
Understood. And that's a point. I mean, we're all in this I hope we're all in this for the same thing, where we really want to keep our town evolving and sorry, I'm trying to do 3 things on Zoom at the same time, trying to get the meeting minutes up. I believe that's it. Okay. That as a planning board, obviously we serve the town and listen to the public to hear their opinions. The more people attend meetings, the more we understand what the public is looking for. And that helps us guide our decision-making. But as a planning board and with Erin Kokinda, the Director of Community and Economic Development, we do see a path, and that's something under item number 6, items not anticipated by the chair. I'm going to speak a little bit about the meeting that we had. Was the first advisory committee meeting for Wakefield Vision 2030. I attended that meeting as invited by Town Council Jonathan Shines. So that's something I'll be discussing there, and hopefully Erin will be there to discuss that a little as well. So we are looking at the future and what the plan is, especially around the lake and all that and zoning. So thank you all. Thanks for the comments, and thank you Planning Board for opinions and comments to keep moving this forward. for the record, we will continue the public hearing on February 9th. Thanks. The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 4, 291 Salem Street, requested modification. Attorney McGrail. You're muted.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
That's okay.
Apologies. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail on behalf of Diljanda Mann, who I think is on. DJ, are you on? I know he's on. In any event,
I am on.
there you are. This relates to the project at 291 Salem Street, which is a 2-lot subdivision that was approved by the board back in 2018. It was also vetted and approved by the Board of Appeals. Both your boards were involved in that project. I really wanted to come tonight to give you a kind of a courtesy, I guess, heads up. We're looking to do some modifications to some of the topography in the back of the property. The drainage on this project was very important to your board and to the Board of Appeals. Both of your boards specifically required that as-built plans be done of the topography to make sure that the drainage was in compliance, but left the door open in your decisions to modify the drainage if it could be done in an appropriate manner. So we were at the Board of Appeals meeting 2 weeks ago. We discussed this with them. And at that meeting, we did tell the board, oh, by the way, the planning board's going to have to look at this also. So we will be submitting that to you. We retained a site civil engineer. They're in the process of completing, I think they actually finished today, a drainage study that we will submit and obviously send it to the town engineer for his review. And basically, we do not think we're going to have any drainage impact by the change. And certainly we wouldn't expect your board to approve it if we would, or the Board of Appeals. The benefit of this is for all concerned, it creates more of a flatter area in the back of one of the houses. So I really just want to appear here in case you had heard that we were at the Board of Appeals on this. I wanted your board to know that you're certainly not being ignored, because you cannot be ignored, because it's a condition of your decision as approved. And we will be filing some information with you in this regard in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Attorney McGrail. Appreciate it. Well, just to back up a moment, and then if any board members have comments. What triggered the topography modification? Was it something that was asked by zoning or asked by town engineer?
No, it was the applicant himself with his contractor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know we took some time about trees and a lot going on back there.
That has all been complied with. There's no
Okay.
effect on that.
All right.
Yeah.
Any comments from Matt or Bill?
Yeah, so I listened to the ZBA meeting. So apparently the site was not constructed as originally was proposed. Is that what the issue is?
Correct.
And now you're looking to modify it
Correct.
to fix issues that weren't dealt with properly, correct?
Well, it's not built according to plan, but the goal of the plan is to address drainage. That was the main purpose of the plan that was vetted by both boards. Both boards in your decision and in the Board of Appeals you specifically stated that drainage and topography was referenced, could be modified by your board. You reserve the right to do that. It's totally within your discretion. You don't have to. We think we're going to be able to hopefully make a pitch to you that what's been proposed out there now in the way it is now is better than it would have been. If you don't determine that, it will have to be put back in the state according to the plan. We acknowledge that.
So basically, you went ahead and changed the site without looking for approval. Now you're looking for approval after the fact.
Well, there's still work that has to be completed out there. It's not entirely completed.
All right.
Either
But
way.
it wasn't built according to plan.
It's not built according to plan, correct?
Okay.
We're not looking, we're not, we think it's a better plan, but you'll determine that. That's within your, that's not for us to make the determination. You will, your board. And we're hoping that you agree with that it will be better for the property. It has no impact on abutters and neighbors, because that was the main concern. And we think that that will be the net effect. And we think our drainage study will show that. The town engineer will confirm it. But again, it's within your jurisdiction to approve it or not. And we know if you don't approve it, they're gonna have to put it according to plan.
So just to get straight, it wasn't built according to plan. Was it built to any plan, or was it just built and now you're revising the plan to get it to work?
It was built according to what the contractor thought would be the best way to build it.
All right, so there wasn't a plan. He just did what he thought. Okay.
Correct.
So now you're redesigning it and you're gonna reconstruct it to a plan.
100% correct. Yeah. It's not done. I mean, it has to be, there have to be changes made to it. The changes are either going to be as we suggest they can be and should be, or the changes are going to be back to the original plan as approved. We think the changes are better. But again, that's up for you to decide, not us. But that's what we want to present to you.
I was muted. As a board, Brian, you recall, we spent a lot of time on this. A lot of concerns, a lot of public input because of the abutters and the amount of water that was sitting in the front of that lot.
Correct. Yeah.
A lot of time.
100%.
So if it's a better system and there's still no extra discharge going into the current drainage, I guess, I mean, is the drainage system that we approved being redesigned by an engineer?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So it's the same one that was designed by the engineer, but with a different topography.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. In your board, in your conditions, you reserve the right and jurisdiction in your sole discretion, not ours, nobody else's, to approve changes in the stormwater management plan, including but not limited to site contours. So, I think part of it is the board recognized that, there could be some things that happen out there. And again, we're not here saying to you, oh, it's not the way according to plan, and, sorry, we can't do it. So we need forgiveness. We know, my client knows that if your board or either your board or the Board of Appeals, either one of you says, no, we want it according to the plan, they have to do that, and they're ready, willing, and able to do it.
Okay.
Can I make one comment, actually?
Go ahead, PJ, sure.
Daljan Man, 14 Pheasantwood Terrace.
Thank you.
Hello, board. I just wanted to basically, over the past 3 months or so, we had some rain and, obviously snow, and, the water does accumulate very well in the retention pond. I don't know if any of the board member has gone over to the site recently, but the system works very well. Again, I'm not saying that this is what we have to do, it's just, the way it is right now, the system does work well as far as the water is concerned.
Thank you. And I did go out and I did have the plan and I looked at it. It's hard to tell from just looking at it to see how different it is from the plan that was approved. So
it really deals with the topography in the back of the house.
Right.
Obviously, there's a wall that was going to be built that hasn't been built, and that creates some difficult topography in the backyard. And when the contractor graded the yard, he thought it could be done better. Once he did that, we said, well, that's wonderful, but it doesn't meet the plan. You can't do that. And but it looks and works so much better that we said, well, let's hire a site civil engineer to do a drainage study to show that it does work appropriate, as DJ just mentioned to the board. I know you can go look at it all day long. You need, professionals and experts to say, yeah, this will work just like it would have when it was originally designed.
Right.
And that's what we're doing.
Okay, so what's the next step, Brian? What's happening with the process here for 291 Salem?
So I think today, a drainage study and plan was completed of what they want to do. Our plan is to submit that to your board and to the Board of Appeals and to Bill Renaud, the town engineer,
Okay.
so he can comment to you.
All right.
We welcome the board to visit the site. If you want to do that, that's not a problem. Just let us know so we could set up a time for that. We don't want anyone to get hurt, but maybe I'm sure you might want to do that. It might actually be helpful to take a look at what's going on back there and how it works. So we would welcome that.
All right, thanks. Matt, do you have any comment, or Bill?
Yeah, I was out there. The intent was to direct the water from basically the back right-hand corner up until the front left-hand corner. And what has happened is you've basically filled in that back area where that swale was supposed to be and along the right side. So I was out there during one of those big rainstorms. Water was not flowing down along that right side. It was actually shedding off into the neighbor's yard. So
there's more work that needs to be done out there, Matt. It's not done. The plan is going to call for more work to be done. I think you're right with what you
I know, but as it's constructed now, it was not constructed properly and it's not working. That's why it's trying to be fixed. So, but I took a look at it and I see what the issues are. I can't see how you're saying it's working better. It's only basically collecting the water on site. It's not mitigating that stuff that was naturally flowing onto that property before. So I guess I'll take a look when you get the new plan and we'll go through it. So
yeah, and I haven't even seen it yet myself. So, but that's where we are.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Brian. Matt, do you want to set up a time with Brian once the plan is provided to visit the site?
well, I assume it's going to be submitted at our next meeting. Is that what the plan is, or?
I think so,
Okay.
Matt. Yeah.
So we'll wait to the next meeting. Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe we all, and me included, we all want to get me and my client and the board want to get an idea of what we're going to actually be proposing. Because Matt has seen it the way it is. So now we're going to
I
tell him.
didn't see it during rain. There was a little, yeah. So I didn't see it while it was raining. Hasn't rained much lately. Okay. Bill, any comments to add? You all set?
Yeah. Why don't, do you think we should go up there and take a look? I haven't really seen that site.
Well, you're all, Brian McGrill, you can go by anytime. I know for me, as Matt was mentioning, and Brian, if we wait to have the plan, and that way we can compare the plan and then look at what's going on out there, I think that's a better scenario.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
All right.
Right. I'll follow.
What's the
No.
address again, if we want to go look at it?
291 Salem Street.
Okay, thanks.
It's two new houses, one set back behind the other on the right. And what you'll look at, Joanne, is the right back. All the water is supposed to come down to the left front where there's a retention pond. So that was the original plan, but we'll wait to see what we receive too.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Attorney McGrill, is it the same engineer who designed it, who's redesigning it, or is it a different one?
Different engineer, different site civil.
Can I ask why the original one isn't doing it, or?
A lot of it, to be very frank and blunt, I think, a lot of it has to do with expense.
Okay.
So But the person who's doing it is very qualified. It's the same engineer that did the Prospect Street subdivision, Sullivan Engineering. He's a smaller firm.
But Brian, to your recollection, did we also have a landscape architect for that one? Or
Yes, we did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, we did. Yep.
was it Emmanuel?
Jim Emanuel, correct.
I was just trying to remember. Okay, okay. All right. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Attorney McGrail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item number 5 tonight, review planning board budget. Erin Kokinda, are you still here?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Hi, thank you. That's
Three.
good.
3 kids under 5, it gets a little tricky sometimes, but yes, I'm still
You
here.
should be in bed by now. Come on.
I know. So yeah, we have our budget that I answered the questions. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to ask.
Did everybody get a chance to, I know we discussed this at our last meeting, but did any board member have any questions regarding the budget? I know it was about the columns and where they were, and we discovered after reading more about the budget, it's really for 2022, correct?
Yeah, it's July
Right.
1, 2021 to June 30th, 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I should probably bring it up, huh? Let me do this. And please, if anybody has any questions while I'm doing this, I'm looking for it, please do.
So it's not a vote to approve, it's more like a vote to accept it, just so the accountant can move forward with his budget.
And if you watched the town council meeting last night, that was a big part of it. Okay. Can you all see the budget? I'm just trying to move it. Man. There we go. Okay. I believe this is the correct one, right? This is the, yep, 2022 planning
Yeah.
board.
Mhm.
And we can
So I guess-
see
Yeah. The
department
question,
request for.
yeah. So sorry, hear kids crying.
That's okay.
Bed.
I guess as a board, we just have to make a motion to accept this.
Yes.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion to accept the Town of Wakefield summary of expenditures of prior periods with estimates for the fiscal period of 2022?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the planning board budget for 2022, which is a little fewer shorter words than what Bill said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Megan, I see your hand. Bill, I see your hand. I'm in favor. Joanne?
Yeah, I'm in favor. I already got
Okay.
my questions answered.
All right. Excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Erin. Definitely learned a little bit more about the budget this time. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're
And I'll
welcome.
stay on for the other item too.
Okay. All right. Thanks. We, item number 6, items not anticipated by the chair. So, Erin, why don't we discuss this one first? So, as I mentioned, I attended, Erin attended, and thank you, Jonathan Chines, for inviting me as a planning board member to attend the first advisory committee meeting for
Sorry,
Wakefield.
guys.
That's right, Vision 2020. So Erin can speak to some of this, but I can also, this is something through the MAPC that was facilitated, and on our agenda was really getting, how big was the group, Jonathan? Maybe 25 people?
About 20 people. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And what we did was we discussed what does this Wakefield Vision 2030 want to be? How do we want to go about it? So if we had 3 of these meetings and then we had 3 focus groups, how would we work with the public to get feedback? So it was really about how do we want to approach these focus groups? How does the timing want to work? How do we want to put together the questions for a survey that would go out. And a lot of good comments came up about how do people who are not online have a computer access the survey? Can it be delivered by hand? Can it be in the item? Can it be on WCAT? How do we get all the feedback? So that's my introduction. Jonathan and Erin, if you want to take it from there and fill in any gaps.
I'm gonna hand it over to Jonathan because this was something that was handed to me when I started, but I'm really excited about the process, especially when it comes to a master plan. I think a vision statement is so helpful. So I think it's gonna be really exciting. So, Jonathan.
Sure. So what the goal of this whole process is to ultimately come up with a vision and values statement for the community of Wakefield that'll be used for a couple of things. One is driving forward future planning efforts and kind of informing things like the master planning process that Erin related to. It will also serve as sort of a guidepost for really all of the boards and committees in towns as we're making different decisions and weighing off different policy options. What's sort of the community vision for Wakefield that we may want to keep in mind as we're making some of those. And finally, I think it's something that will serve as really a guidepost and kind of a selling point for the town. When Erin goes out and talks to potential businesses that may want to come to Wakefield, if I meet residents who are thinking about buying here, when they want to know what makes Wakefield special, what makes Wakefield unique, why do you want to live or work here? This kind of gives us some of the reasons why. So that's the ultimate goal of this effort. It is something that is going to be a highly participatory and highly public process, that will involve a series of virtual public forums. I think when we started talking about this process last year, pre-COVID, the hope would be there would be in-person forums, but unfortunately, we're kind of dealt the hand we're dealt on this case. There will also be some online surveys, as well as some opportunities to participate in those surveys sort of offline for folks that don't have internet access as well. Ultimately, with the goal of gathering a high degree of public feedback to inform sort of what that vision and value statement would look like. And the goal of this advisory committee is really to help shape what that public process looks like, and then how do we start taking that massive amount of data that we gather through public engagement and put that into a coherent form. So the discussion that we had, which Bill, I'm so grateful for your participation there on behalf of the planning board and everyone who was there. It was a really fantastic group, was to really start to shape out what does the public engagement process look like? What kinds of themes and questions do we want to ask? How do we want to make sure that people engage in the process so that as sort of the, kind of the public participation phase of this effort rolls out, we're being as thoughtful and deliberate about how we bring people into the process as possible.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, that's
Thanks, Erin.
a great explanation. Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
Yep. And I want to make sure too, the board, I'm there as a board member, obviously, but I'm not speaking for the board when I'm there. I'm really just to give my input as how we can, especially with my experience doing focus groups and surveys and everything through my career. So it was really nice to help shape this and be part of it. So I'm excited moving forward as well.
Yeah. And if I may, Mr. Chair, when we do get to the public participation phase of that, for the other members on the board, for the public that's watching, I mean, everyone is invited to participate, and there's certainly no reason why all 5 members of the planning board can't be part of that process and can't be sharing your input as well.
Awesome, thank you.
And I also want to say, like we were talking about, zoning, everything. I think this is a huge part of, like I said, the master plan moving forward as we want to look at our community. So yeah, more input would be better. So any help would be great.
Any questions for the board about this? Erin, Jonathan, will there be something on the town website or a separate website or page that will really keep everybody up to date on what's going on progress-wise?
Yeah, I think.
Yep.
Jonathan, you can talk too.
No, I was just nodding to say yes. What
Yeah.
that will look like, again, I don't think we know yet. You know, obviously we've got
yeah.
to design the process first, but yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was talking to MAPC this week, and we're looking at the next steps, and it'll definitely be on the website. I'm sure we'll share it on Facebook and all the other, outlets we have. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. I do have one more item to bring up, and it's more about our town website. So as you know, there were some questions asked regarding the planning board website. I'm just going to the page. Let's see. Boards, committees. I'll share it in a second. Okay. So as requested by the board, we have in through here, we did change a few things. So to be contact the board chair. So this email address still goes to me through the town of Wakefield Outlook mail server. And we also changed the, please see the community and economic development page. So this still links to the town planner page, what used to be. And I believe Erin and Jen worked together to get this all. So there's nothing missing from it. And we're hoping to see a better process of how this is laid out to make sense of where people can find documents. And Erin had asked some really good questions about, well, how does this work? If people are asking for documents, meaning if somebody is applying for asking for information on an A&R, or how do they bring a zoning article to town meeting? We want to have that information on the town webpage, so it's real easy to find. The projects for review, we had Jen McDonald. Sorry, go ahead.
So I had a conversation with Gail Conroy, who's the clerk for the ZBA, Sherry, Steve Mayo's town administrator assistant, and Jen McDonald, about how we can streamline the process a little better too, about submitting documents. So I think there might be something coming online where you can just log in and see documents instead of sharing as well. Having Susan come around and drop everything off. So that's something also that might be happening soon. So I just wanted to, sorry, maybe not the right time, but
no, this,
something in the future. Yeah.
Right, and that's something we've been discussing, and the whole idea would be is that somebody, our board, the ZBA, the Conservation Commission, town engineer can go up to the webpage, click on a link, and review those documents. I'm hoping that it's even a portal, like some of the project management portals that I work with, that you can go into and you can check a box that you've seen it. So it's like, okay, well, Matt, Bill, Joanne, Megan, they've all viewed this. Do they have any comments on it? And you can put the comments right in there. I mean, this is something that's more advanced than what the town has right now, but I know Erin is starting to make those wheels move. So I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, I think all the pieces are there. It just, if everyone's good with it, and we have to change our bylaws to probably make sure that's okay, I think it would make everyone's life a little easier. So yeah, I think we can do it.
Be a lot less paper going around and dropping off things at people's houses. I know. Of course, we still need to sign things. I'm sorry, Joanne, go ahead.
I like paper.
We can still do paper for you, Joanne.
You can print it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the truth with it, right? So these people they bring boxes, I guess Gail told me, boxes and boxes of stuff with their plans. And environmentally, yeah, it's not right. But also it's when you think about the time that takes to do that, it's just crazy. So if we can just kind of simplify things, I think it will make it a lot easier for us as a town, and also the people submitting plans. I don't know.
Nope, that's true. And I know my first year of the planning board, my wife was like, why do we have all these stacks of paper on the side? So yes, it's true. I did recycle most of it, but thank you. There's one more thing on my list that I I still haven't been able to accomplish from a request from the planning board is having email addresses from the town. Meeting with Erin and Steve Mayo about this, Steve was like, wow, you don't have them? So I need to send a message to Todd at the town to set up those email addresses. And what I suggested would be your first initial last name at Wakefield. So, and that would be the email address. And you could figure out what you're going to do with that. How are you going to forward them to your whatever email? But my understanding is from Sherry Dalton and from Steve Mayo that this is how it should be happening to keep a legal trail of emails, and you should not be using your personal email for this. So that's still for me to contact Todd, but that was a conversation I think we had last week. Correct, Erin? Yeah, okay, all right. That's all I have. Matt, do you have anything that you wanted to bring up that wasn't anticipated on our agenda?
Yeah, I do. So I've been running into this because I have to do this part of my business. If I wanted to submit an A&R plan to Wakefield, where's the instructions? Who does it go to? What's the process? What's included? At what point does it need to be submitted before it is on the agenda? None of that is anywhere.
So that's a very great point, because I actually sent Bill a message the other day. I'm like, we have no checklist, we have no submittal dates, nothing. And so I think that's something I'm definitely gonna be working on to happen sooner than later. Yeah. So does that answer your question, or?
Well, yes, we've
So, I mean, I guess
identified
my
the problem.
question, can I ask the question back to you? How did you do it before? You just went to Paul and he would do it, or?
People would either come to the town planner or you'd come to the planning board and we directed the town planner.
Well, that's happening still, so I just want you to know that. Sorry. That's still happening, and I still direct them where they need, like the checklist they need to do. But I think there needs to definitely be a better process.
Yeah, but they would definitely go to a town planner. A lot of people are used to going to a town planner, not the economic development page. So I think for a lot of people, they might not know that you are handling those duties. So we just need to state that.
Okay, you do that. No
Same
problem.
with, where does a Mylar get dropped off? Does a Mylar need to be in before our meeting? I know a lot of times now I don't need to get a Mylar in for a planning board meeting. I just need to get PDFs in so it can be approved. I've just been, because I've been doing this for a couple different towns, I've seen that, at least the process is all documented, so they know when it needs to be in, what's expected. Like with the ZBA things, all of those things should be specified that they're PDFs and not paper copies, but that hasn't changed, so.
I think we're at a good time, Matt, where we can make these changes, and all the suggestions are really good. I think maybe as a board, Bill, and I know Megan and Joanne, you have a little less experience than we have with this, but maybe we could put together a list and help Erin with this. And my thought would be, Matt, I've been through the same process for different approvals for design review boards as well, and just do a screenshot of their website to how it's laid out. Erin and I were talking about this last week, and my hope is that we can quickly see on the Board of Appeals page, the Town Planner page, the Conservation Commission page, the Inspectional Service, all the pages have a similar layout, and on the left side, it's like, do you need to do this? What do you need to do? And it would have a list of questions. It would bring you to a link to a common place where you can find all the applications that you need and what the process would be. So are you looking to file a approval not required plan? Are you looking to, and write down the list?
Yeah.
And it could be standard on each of those pages for each of our boards or committees.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's what I was alluding to. Like, it definitely could be simplified and there's a checklist of what you need to do. And yes, I am not the town planner, but I can still figure it out and connect people where they need to go. So I just think our website right now is not user friendly, and maybe we can look at it a little more and make it user friendly. So that's what I sent to Bill.
Yep, thanks. So if you do, Matt, if you do come across a page, if you want to do a screen capture of that, and you can send it off to Erin and copy me, that would be awesome.
Okay.
And Megan, if you see anything, or Bill or Joanne, that really seems to work, or is very clear and clean with the wording, or there might be something that we're missing.
Well, I don't think I've looked at a lot of community pages and they don't have really good checklists. So if we can be at the forefront of that, I think that would be really great. I mean, I looked at Chelmsford because I used to work with them pretty closely and they had a good checklist, but more of a virtual checklist of like, you do this, 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 this. I think that would be really great. So.
Yeah. A lot of towns are in the middle and cities are in the middle of changing their websites because of everything that's happened. Recently working in the town of Needham's website, everything is submitted online now. There's no paper whatsoever. Everything goes through their checklists, and they're so helpful with a frequently asked questions page with links to different people. And it's nice because it's not wasting time, not wasting other people's time.
Well, at a minimum, we should have our subdivision rules and regulations link right on our page, because it takes you a while to find, you know, I don't know, you can type into Google, but I type
I
into Google.
completely agree. I had to find that the other day for someone. Phil was on the email. So yes, I completely agree.
Yeah. I know, and this is, Paul did such a wonderful job as our town planner, but as we found out, he did so much that we didn't know about. But it's also a time kill that you have to wait to hear back from a town planner when you could access as much as you can from our site. And Jen's has done a wonderful job, and she's been so responsive with updating things. It's been great. It's been so easy. Ask her to do something and it's pretty much done. So that's been helpful as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement, and anything you guys need, just reach out to me. And I work very closely with Jen. I'm more than happy to help.
Excellent. Any other comments regarding this?
Well, one of my big things is trying to figure out what the hours of town hall are, and try to look on the website and find that you can't. So, I mean, just kind of go to the basics as to what the hours are would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people do need to go to the town hall, and they do change. I understand that, but they were on for a while and they were incorrect, but I'm trying to find them right now. I don't know where I would find those.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They're not updating it as much as they need to. I remember like when the pit schedule was all over the place this year, and that wasn't always up there either.
So I don't mean to be so I Googled it, and when you look at, there's a headline saying changes to town hall hours. January 5th.
Oh, right in the middle. Okay.
Does anyone else see that? I just want to make sure maybe it's just me.
Well, I've been using the search in the top right of our webpage. If you go to our main page, and there's a big search in the top right, and I just typed in town hall hours, and it came up, you know, changes to public hours at town halls. So it still isn't easy to find, but I've been using that search a lot more anytime I need something. So if I type in A&R in that search.
No, but I agree. I do agree with you, Matt. Things should be easier to find online, especially when it comes to planning. When someone comes in, they want to find out how the process works. I completely agree. But when I looked at the hours, I found it right away.
Yeah, well, I was looking on like a normal, where you would see about hours and visiting and things like that, I didn't really look to in one of the red banners in the middle because it doesn't really stand out.
That's
So
right there.
yeah, but it's there now, but I can assure you it's going to change. So
I know, and maybe this is just a sign of the times. As soon as I go to any site, I look for the search and I go right to the search. And like I said, I typed in A&R and it looked for, and it's a nice little filtering system here and a little date if you want to as well. And so you can go ahead and filter out anything that's 2020 versus 2019. And you could find an A&R plan from 2018 on our website. Oops, that didn't work, huh? I guess you can't do a range. All right, I'm not going to do that part. So you can see the planning board.
Yeah, that's not, yeah, helpful.
So, but this is what can be
Yeah,
a way to do it. If we are directing people towards a search and they can type in the words and it helps them find something by filtering through documents, because it mines through the documents. It actually went through that PDF and found the words A&R.
Yeah, that's good.
I just wanted to point this out because this was something I don't think a year ago we had. Okay, any other non-anticipated? I don't know if anybody got a chance to look at the Board of Appeals notes that went around. There was a couple projects, and there is one project at 49A Chestnut Street that is a pretty large modification renovations. It's on the corner of Chestnut and Emerson.
It's
And it's a non-conforming lot because there's really no off-street parking that, and there's, from what I see, there's 3 units that will on the lot, and it is at a 4-way stop, but 3 units times 2 is 6 cars, so 6 cars off-street parking. I don't need to make any comments about it, but it's good as a board to, I am making a comment about it, but I don't have any objection to it. But the idea is that we do receive these. Thank you, Susan. We do receive these. And the idea is that if you look through them and you find something that you don't agree with or you're not sure of, this is the time in our meeting to bring it up. For example, 581 to 583 Salem Street, the Grant's Family Project. So this is another one that was in front of the board. And this is the larger units. I can't remember exactly, but I think it's like 20, I can't remember the amount of units. But I did do some math because I was concerned about, are they getting the right number of affordable units in there? And for the amount of units they have 3 or 4 pages in here explaining exactly how the affordable units are measured and working out. And the affordable units, there's 19 units times the 18% that as a town we're requiring is 3.42 units, which to me means 4 units. The ZBA is allowing 3 affordable units through this.
I
So
think they round down.
right. So the question is, do they round down or round up? So my point being, in the last meeting that we had, Matt Lowry brought up comments about this, and I wrote a letter to the ZBA, and the ZBA listened to that letter that we wrote as a board to review their project and make changes to the parking. And this was the one that was up on by what was the street, Matt? Sorry.
Otis. It was
Otis.
10 Otis. Mhm.
Right. And they did listen to what we gave them as comments. So please look at that information that's coming out. And if you do have anything that you have questions about, this is the time of our meeting to bring them up.
Oh, how come, I was a little confused why we got those in our mailbox, but it wasn't on the agenda?
Well, it's from other boards. It doesn't come onto our agenda, and Susan, I delivered them. So in a regular meeting, if we were all in town hall sitting around the table, these would be in front of us when we arrive. And we would look through them to see if we had any comments on them. And the first thing that I look at when I receive it is who it's from, what the project is, and obviously what board. It's usually from the ZBA. And then when is their next meeting that we have to respond by? So if they want a response by a certain date, as a board, if we have any comments, we need to get it to them obviously before that meeting date.
Okay, so is this the time that you want to talk about 49A Chestnut?
Yeah, if you have a comment about it, this would be the time in our meeting to discuss that.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns about 49A, and it's 2 doors down from me, so I know the history of the property as well, and they're making a lot of noise, doing a lot of work already. So
They can do that within the right hours.
they got asbestos going all over the place. I mean, it's been a dump. It kind of amazes me that they don't maintain a property like that for many years, and then all of a sudden they're gonna make it, a bigger, taller, better building. It's like it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Does it make sense that they're fixing it up, or?
No, that they couldn't maintain it progressively all along. Like, where did they get the money to all of a sudden do all this work on it now?
That is so subjective. Maybe the property changed hands. Maybe they got an inheritance. Maybe they just couldn't do it before because they couldn't afford it. So now they are doing it, which is pretty cool. I wish that would happen around town more, honestly. Especially downtown.
I don't think that's, I don't think it's sold. I think they tried to sell it and it didn't sell because it was so poorly maintained. So now they have to do work and they want to sell it for more.
Right.
But
It is
anyway,
possible that triggered it if they had an inspection and there's asbestos that they couldn't sell it because of that, but that hasn't stopped a developer in the past. Yeah, it's all speculation. And for our board, it's like we really want to be concerned with what about the parking? Is it going to be dangerous? What about, zoning takes care of setbacks and everything else that's going on, the Board of Appeals, heights and all that. We really have to concern ourselves with the abutters because of this property. Is something going to wash out onto their property because of where this is on a corner? What about the extra parking? Because are there any other bathrooms or bedrooms added? I went to the plans and counted the bedrooms. I actually think they're going to have one less bedroom with the renovation than what they have now. Not that that matters so much, but that's looking at the plans when I went through, that's what I noticed.
But that is a common thing, Joanne, is that properties do get run down to the point where the proponent will come in and say, well, the place is such a mess, we need to do something to fix it up. And, oh, by the way, we're going to double the size of it. That happens quite a bit, unfortunately. So I've kind of been a opponent of purposely running down property to get people to agree for you to fix it up, but double the size of it or something.
yeah, I guess my concern on that property would be the height of it. I don't think it's going to fit into the neighborhood as well. I also think in terms of the taking up the space on the property, there is in the zoning bylaw or in the multifamily description in the table, it says it's supposed to take up 35% of the land, and it's already non-conforming.
Yes.
So it's already too big really for the lot, which is probably why there's not enough parking. And going up higher, it's not exactly going to look good in a neighborhood that's pretty close to everything, pretty important part of town. So
so just to point out, the building isn't really getting any taller, but the mass is going to feel taller because what was a gable roof is now pushing up higher. So I don't know how well that shows, but there's the proposed elevation. And where you can see siding and windows on a third floor was before a gable roof. And the mass is going to definitely feel larger. Again, not something that our board can really deal with or comment on. What I've done in the past with that is I attend the ZBA meetings and voice my opinion there.
Yeah, like I said the same thing about the Otis development where, you know, the concept of a yard and a little bit of grass and open space seems to be going away. I don't think it's really a good thing for the town. I don't think it's a good thing for the neighborhood. And they don't have enough parking. So
Right.
where are the cars gonna go? Hopefully not in front of my house.
Well, that's how people get involved, because there's cars in front of their house. But I appreciate it. This is the type of conversation I did want to have, because I know from Megan and Joanne, some of this might be new, and this is, just wanted to make sure that there's a reason you're getting those drawings and those plans. And hopefully in the near future, you'll just have to go online and check the PDFs out and print them if you need to, or just look at them online and make some comments if needed. Oh, back to your original question, Joanne. We can't anticipate, we can't put stuff on our agenda that we don't know about, obviously, and that's why we have this little open time, so we can have the chance to discuss something that comes up in between. Obviously, we can't vote and we can't do other things at this time, but we can have discussions about comments back to another board or committee.
And Bill, I had a
yep.
question about an item around the 2021 town election information. I know that we now have the ability to kind of pull papers, and I talked to Joanne to make sure that we're not gonna fight over the same seat. But I didn't know, I know we have until going on the town website and searching that we have until March 5th to obtain the nomination papers. But with COVID, how do we actually get the nomination papers?
You would visit town hall to get them.
Okay, so I should look at their revised hours.
Yes. I would call ahead.
12:30.
Yep. Yeah, I would call ahead and talk to town clerk or someone in the office to set up a time that you're going to come in. It's much easier to do that, and they'll have all the papers ready for you. So it's a really quick walk in, temperature scan, show your ID, and get the papers and go out the back door.
Okay.
So in terms of getting, we have to get 50 signatures. I know we're going to talk about this on the meeting. I think it is Thursday. The one
Yep.
that, there's a meeting about it. Which thank you.
Or just if I could interrupt, just a suggestion, get like 54 or 55 signatures. Don't just get 50. If for some chance one of them is not valid or they can't read it, it's worth getting a couple extra. One year I had like 54 and 3 of them were not valid or something.
So is the requirement still in-person signatures from at least 50 people?
As far as I know, yes. Jonathan, do you, okay.
It is, yeah. So that's actually consistent with a state requirement, and there, unfortunately hasn't been any relief to that. So it is still 50, kind of wet signatures, in person from registered voters in Wakefield. They do have to be registered voters, and Bill's advice of getting more than 50, getting 55 to 60, so you have a little bit of a cushion is definitely good advice. Well,
that is going to be kind of difficult to get within 6 feet of 55 people or so.
I think what Julie,
it's going to be tough. So, and that should be something that the state tries to give some relief on, because man, I would not want to do that.
No, I don't look forward to doing that.
what Julie Galvin Scott, I believe, is doing. Julie Scott Galvin. I sorry.
Galvin.
Didn't she set some hours where she's going to be down at the post office or somewhere on Saturday from like 12 to 2. Did I see that?
Yeah, so I've seen, some of the folks that are running for other committees have done that where they've said, I'm going to be in front of the library between,
Okay.
10 and 12, with lots of hand sanitizer and masks and, sanitized pens if you can come down. I had a couple of folks, who I know who are running for things kind of reach out and say, can I leave the pages on your, on your front porch and I'll go wait in my car while you sign them and then come get them. So it is doable. It's definitely a lot harder than kind of the pre-pandemic days where there were a lot of in-person events and people were just out and about more often than they are now.
Right.
I think as Matt and Bill and I and Bill and anyone who's kind of run pre-pandemic knows it wasn't that bad in the before times, I guess.
I don't know. It was kind of agonizing to just get 55, like without the pandemic, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, most times by the time you left town hall, you had 20 to 25 already. So
Yeah.
that doesn't happen anymore. So
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's a good thing you all don't have to worry about it. Just Joanne and I get to.
Or anybody else that's running. You never
Yep.
know.
Well, no, I just mean like all your terms aren't currently up.
True.
So
Yeah, that's right. Point taken. Well, I do appreciate Megan and Joanne that you, after the couple months that we've had, you are planning to run again. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was joking with Bill. I started watching planning board meetings. I live in Wakefield, but I knew there was some head of development happening, whatever. And then I started watching when I got this job, and you guys have been through the ringer. So I appreciate everything you're doing. You guys are doing a great job. So it's been difficult.
Oh, thanks. And much easier with 5, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Matt and I and Bill are going to take a night off. Just kidding.
There you go. Yeah, you guys are all doing a great job. So
Thanks.
Hey, can I give you a tip on getting the signatures?
I will take all the tips.
Bill, keep it legal.
Just stand in front of Dunkin' Donuts. Don't sign
There you
anything. Get away from you, and they run in and get their coffee. Right there.
Which one?
Well, I would do it during lacrosse or hockey or whatever. I would just go around Little League, just walk around.
No, that's a good idea.
and
All right.
definitely,
Anything else for tonight?
definitely shoot us an email when you have your papers, and we'll make sure that we all sign it too. So
Thank you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we'll all sign. 2 or 3 times. No.
Hey, you can go pay your bill to Susan and have her sign too. All right.
I was going to say, you should be able to get whoever's in the clerk's office when you pull papers too. So you're at 10 already based on this discussion.
Yeah, that's good too.
well, we're thankful for everything. So thanks, guys.
No, thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks,
Thank
Aaron.
you, Susan. Any other comments before there's a motion, hopefully to adjourn?
no other comments from me.
All right. Megan, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
Sure, I move to adjourn our meeting of January 12th, 2021 of the planning board.
Thank you. All in favor?
I'll second that, and then.
Oh, thank you. Matt seconds. All in favor? All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.